Sometimes when things calm down, we feel like there's something broken. When the reality is we need those times. We need the calms. We need the calms and the light airs. And ultimately, on his boat, when things are calm, he tidied up ship. And the same is true in business. When things are calm, that's time to sharpen the sword, to use the blank space and the margins to do something different.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Flywheel Effect, where we're sponsored by Vital. Vital, Matt, my business partner here, co-host of this podcast who runs Vital, is such a great resource for the integrator out there. You're going to optimize your business. You're going to make it run better. You're going to understand your finances and ultimately make more money, get more time, and find more success. So if you're ready for that, and I imagine you are, it's time to get on the horn and give Vital a call. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's a good day. I feel great. Been a very busy week. I feel like it's been a busy month. The 2-week Christmas break or holiday break was fantastic and slow and chill. And then like January 5th launched out of a cannon and it's been busy. So, but I'm feeling good, man. Feeling really good.
I hear you, Matt. I feel like January has been a whirlwind of a month for me. All kinds of things going on. And like, how did it end? Like, I'm not ready for February yet. Yeah.
It's definitely been one of those months that I wasn't ready for it to go this quick. Even though on a day by day basis, it felt like it went slow. Like the last week felt like I should say this week went quickly. Last week was very slow, just in terms of the, time, but whatever.
Well,
trying to enjoy every minute.
I think I averaged, more than 2 flights a week this month. So when you're traveling that much, it just kind of sucks up time.
Oh yeah.
And I am not a good plane worker. I think I think if I had to guess, you're probably a pretty good plane worker. I am a terrible plane worker.
I used to be, and now I've recognized that I struggle to stay focused on the plane. So my program is if I can get a good nap in the first 30 minutes of the flight, I'm solid and I can work through the rest of the flight. But if that first nap, for whatever reason, it is not like adequate, I'm a wreck. So I've now tried not to require myself to work on a plane, and it works out better.
I don't plan on it. And then I'm like, I'll get something done on the plane. And then it just fucking, doesn't happen.
And how do we still have the worst internet possible on these airplanes? Like, with Starlink and whatnot, you would think that it's fixed, but the internet is still so bad on, at least 50% of the flights I go on. So I don't even try to deal with it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It should be better. But I guess, it's something flying through the air at 600 miles an hour, trying to pick up random satellite signals. I can understand that it might be some problems.
Yeah, no doubt.
So anyway, just a side note, you're a good California boy. My wife is a good California girl, and she constantly bemoans the state of Mexican food here in New Jersey. Just like when I'm in California, I constantly bemoan the state of decent pizza in Southern California. And when I find something that's good, she tells me I have no right to rate or look at Mexican food because I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I tell her the same thing about pizza so it works out. But finally got a taco shop in our little town. She got lunch fare for the first time today. And she was ecstatic. It was just like exactly what she wanted, so and it's like literally 2 minutes away. So I'm a happy camper because when my wife has Mexican food that she enjoys, she's a happy camper.
Nice. I love it. Is it like a taco stand or is it an actual storefront?
No, it's a little storefront. I mean, one of those places that you walk in, you order from the counter, maybe there's like 4 chairs and 2 tables just in case somebody wants to sit down, but nobody ever does. One of those kind of places.
Yeah. I wonder what the average New Jerseyan is going to think of that food. Like, have you talked to anyone else?
People like it.
Who's enjoyed it? Yeah, good.
I mean, in the past 20 years, the experiencing different foods has really exploded. Like, Thai food's not exotic anymore to anybody. West Coast pizza's gotten better. Mexican food has gotten better. And it's just, it's like, I think everyone's just more open. So it's good. We actually have one really good, like high-end Mexican restaurant in town that is really fantastic. And I'm not allowed to say it's fantastic. My wife says it's fantastic. So that's why it counts.
Speaking of pizza, have you been to Pizza Rock on Fremont in Vegas?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you need to make a point to go there. I think they have multiple locations, but the only one I've been to is in Vegas. They have every style of pizza: Detroit, Chicago, New York,
I question that.
all of it, and it is all incredible, Brent. So it's a Tony Gimangiando or something. He's a very famous pizza guy, and I have had nearly every style of pizza there, and it's all fantastic. So you should try it. Give it a shot.
Anthony Mangiari? Is that who you said?
Tony. I don't know. I have to look it up, but I'm sure if you looked up Pizza Rock, it'll say his name on there. But I didn't believe it either when I saw the menu. I'm like, there's no way they're good at making all these different style pizzas. But the way to do it is you go with a big group so that you can get one of every style. Because of course, if you just go on your own, you're not gonna do that. So you go with a big group.
It's a different guy than I was thinking of, but I will give it a shot. As you are from California, I am skeptical of your pizza taste, but that's okay.
Sure.
So I'll give it a shot.
Absolutely.
That sounds good. And obviously, I'm in Vegas all the time, so maybe I'll make a point of that. Oh, you know what? I got an idea for that. Perfect. Separate, but good.
Big group.
So anyway, let's move on to what today. This is our fourth book. We're supposed to do this a couple months ago. We didn't get there. Part of it is I think you were a little bored with this book, even though it's one of my favorites. We are reading The Long Way by Bernard Moitessier. And this is not a traditional business book. It's a book about sailing. It's a specific book about sailing, about something called the Vendée Globe, which is a round the world race. And this was the first entry, took an account of the first entry of this race that was basically informal, which left from England, down the Atlantic, around Antarctica, and back up the Atlantic to England. And somehow became a really big news story in 1967 when it happened. About a dozen people entered. One person finished. And not Bernard Moitessier. He did something totally different, which we'll get into later. But this is essentially his firsthand account of that trip that he took for that race. And understand, single-handed, round the world, nonstop. You're on a boat by yourself in the southern ocean, which is freezing cold, has 60-foot seas, and constant 40-mile-an-hour wind. So it's insane. And for 6 months. Anyway, the reason I had you read this book, and actually, before I say why we're reading this book, I want to see what you thought of this right now, Matt.
So for the listener, before we hit the record button, Brent said, Matt, did you finish this book? And I said, let's first hit record because, and no surprise to him, as soon as I said that, he knew I didn't finish the book because I wanted to drop the bomb right here that I did not finish this book. In fact, I only got a third of the way through the book.
You didn't get to the good part.
For a couple of reasons. One, it was, now I did note some really important takeaways, like very important business lessons that came out of it. But as I read it, for me, it was the same thing over and over again. And I also, and Brent and I had talked about this before, there were so many words in there that were specific to ocean, like oceaneering, I guess, and sailing, that I spent more time looking words up than reading the book. And so I moved very slowly through it. And of course, we had this deadline, right? And I prioritized other books versus this. I'll put it to you this way, Brent.
Okay.
The Reacher book that you gave me, I actually prioritized finishing that because I was so enthralled in it. Then
so
I loved it.
that.
Yeah, I loved it. So this one at times was incredibly entertaining. There were a lot of great lessons, but I did make the decision. I'm like, there's just no way I'm going to even finish it. And so I would read. It felt like I would read a page or two, and it would take like 30 minutes. And so for me, I did not finish the book, but I do have some great takeaways, and I can't wait to hear about the things that you love about this book so that I could maybe motivate myself to finish it.
So one thing that I love about this book is, and actually, before I get to my love, why did I choose this book to read here, Matt? And I look at what he went through as basically an ultimate entrepreneurial journey. One of the lessons my dad taught me, or would often say, and he was an entrepreneur, owned his own businesses, was that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a business owner, you are always alone. Literally. And what he meant by that is, even though you have a team, people working, you can say, when it push comes to shove, you're the only one that's responsible. You're the only one who make a final decision. Anything that bad happens is completely your fault. And you are the one that suffers the consequences, but also that you're the one who that experiences the joy and satisfaction of when things succeed. But there's a loneliness to being an entrepreneur and being a business owner that if you're not really ready for it, this is a small business. No, we're not doing a venture-backed entrepreneurship thing. That's a different story. But when you are a business owner, that nature of being alone is powerful. And some people don't realize it until they get in trouble, but then I think they feel it really fully.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, you look at this is an all-consuming existence when he's on this boat. Nothing else. There cannot be anything else that matters. He has to strip away everything else. It's a focus on survival. It's a focus on how fast can he go in learning how to be one with his boat and being consumed in his life with that journey. Same thing as an entrepreneur who's really going through a business. There's no work-life balance for a small business entrepreneur. That's initially. So those are kind of the key points here. And then it's about seeing the ebb and flow of experiences is if you think about it, is that last bit before, and I'm going to turn to you a little bit. The last bit is when you mentioned to me your difficulty in language, it's really triggered something in my mind. It's like, wow, he's right. And this is also something as entrepreneurs that we have to be very careful of. When we are in our business and we're speaking about our business to consumers or someone who doesn't care as much, we have to really be conscious of our language because we can fall into that trap of speaking in a lingo about things, making assumptions on prior knowledge that other people don't have. And I am a sailor, so I didn't really think about the language that you, but then when you said it, I started reading and like, wow, I understand what he's talking about now. I just read it.
It's every sentence almost has some new word, at least for the first several paragraphs. But what a great point you bring up, because jargon is something that just happens for us on a daily basis in the business world, right?
Yeah. And it's very much so. Like even within the business world, there's different jargons. I took a friend of mine who was an operator in distributorships to an investment conference, and he was at this conference listening. Everybody says, "Brent, I went to Wharton with you. Like I'm not a stupid guy. I have no idea what these people are talking about."
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, really? I didn't recognize that."
Yeah. I love that, man. What a great perspective.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's an important thing to remember when you're speaking to people. Like when you got a project or you have a new potential employee is if you speak in jargon, it's either going to confuse them or it's just going to go right through them and it doesn't affect how they think at all. And that's not what you want either. So taking the time to explain is a really important thing.
Yeah, and I think a third thing could happen there too, Brent, is that it could make them feel dumb and they don't they won't want to ask about that, right? Like as I was reading the book, I was thinking like, should I know what these terms are? No, of course not. I've always been interested in sailing, but I mean, I know what a mast is and I know what a keel is, but nearly everything else was new. And it was actually really cool. There were a few things that this book did for me. One, it renewed my interest in sailing. I think I've only ever been on one boat that was powered under, like that was under sail or whatever you call it, right?
Yeah.
And it was a catamaran in like, I don't know, Mexico somewhere. And it was really cool to have no motor sound. Yeah. It was to be just hauling ass, no sound of the motor. All you're hearing is just the wind and the ocean. And so that was really cool. But yeah, the other thing that it did is it prompted me to buy a globe, which felt like a very adult thing for me. And I don't know why it took so many years to own one. I'm not looking forward to having to like move it from house to house without getting damaged. But I bought a pretty nice one because I felt like, it helped me to connect with where he was in his journey and also helped me to realize like beyond geography class in, what was that, junior high school or whenever you learn geography, we don't generally, beyond traveling, we don't spend a lot of time, or I haven't spent a lot of time looking at the globe. And I
That's great.
realize now I just look at Google Maps, and it's really not the same as a globe.
No, no, it's not. And I'm really glad you did that. Like, I think connecting to our planet through geography, it really gives you a sense. If you think about geography as far as the people, the environment, the weather that happens in these different places, it lets you appreciate the way different things work in different places. I love it. I'm a bit of a geography junkie. Like, I've always been, like, growing up, like, probably until they got rid of the magazine in the airplane. One of the first things I would do is open up that map in the back of that magazine in the airplane. You know, the airplane mags all had that map with their routes on it. And I would just follow the routes and just kind of see where things go. And it's like, wow, that's pretty far. So, like, that's awesome. I'm so glad you did. And, like, because it's so different. Like, it makes you realize how big this place is.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very different. So let's talk about, so you shared some of your favorite things. What are some of your favorite parts of this book? So, like, you mentioned, oh, Matt, did you get to the best part? Like, talk to me about your favorite parts and why, and then maybe connect the dots on, for our listeners, if there's any lessons out of those.
So for 2/3 of the book, he's running this race. And there's a few things that happen in the middle of that are really critical, especially if you're thinking in the context of this as either an entrepreneurial metaphor or entrepreneurial allegory. First is, like, his preparation, where he spends significant time, builds this boat by hand. It's a boat designed to go around the world and survive. It's solid steel hull. It's designed to take the beating that he knows is coming in the Southern Ocean. And just, I need to frame the Southern Ocean for you, everybody. So the Southern Ocean is the ocean that wraps around Antarctica. You can say it's part Atlantic, Indian, or Pacific. It can maybe, if you want to think of it as kind of the bottom part of those, but it's actually different. The reason it's different is that around Antarctica, basically the entire circumference of the globe is unimpeded by land. There's a little stick of South America, but that doesn't really count. That allows waves to continue to wrap around the world continuously. Waves don't stop unless they're stopped by something. They continue in their path. So they keep going, and they build and they build and they draw wind. So there's the reason Antarctica is so cold all the time is there's this current of wind and water that's constantly circling it and keeping it out. Like, when you think of, like, a wizard in the movies and they get that kind of, like, fog thing circling around that keeps everybody out, that's what's happening in Antarctica. And that causes the waves to be swells. Like, when you see swells in the ocean, they're like 5 to 10 feet in the ocean right now. They seem huge. There's 60-foot swells in the Southern Ocean. Crazy. So crazy. Not even breaking waves, 60-foot swells. And then they break and they peak if they hit the right spot. And they have a crest swell that's 30 feet. Like, it's nuts. And the wind's whipping around 50 miles an hour for days on end. He's talking gale force 9, gale force 10.
Yeah.
Those are basically hurricanes. So just this context of what the pain and agony that he is purposefully and happily putting himself through. And to do this, he left his wife and children behind to do it. Yeah. So he is married, and he was married with children in France that he went to go. So anyway, so he's coming down
and really nearly no contact with any other humans, right? Like, he every now and again he would pick up a radio connection, but otherwise he's absolutely
remember
alone.
His radio connection. He did not have a transmitting radio. Right. He only had a receiving radio. So if he wanted to, I think it was 3 times on the trip, he saw another boat, and he had a slingshot, and he put a note in a film case and used a slingshot to shoot it on the boat, and in there it says, "Please send this to Lloyd's of London. I'm okay."
Yeah.
It's like
so
that's
wild.
It. So wild. Totally alone. So entrepreneur, sometimes you're alone. So there's a couple of things that happen before I get to the best part. Down at the bottom, it goes down the Atlantic, which is a really long run, right? Down to basically Cape of Good Hope. There's 3 capes. Cape of Good Hope is Africa. Cape Lewin is Australia. New Zealand's actually lower, but they always talk about Lewin. And then Cape Horn, the tip of South America. To get around the room, you got to go past all three capes. Around Good Hope, two things happen that are really interesting lessons. One, he looks at this, he's knows what he's going to encounter in the Southern Ocean. And he looks at what he packed into the boat, like his supplies, his extras, everything else. And he decides that he needs to be lighter and be able to center his weight better. And he takes a judgment on what he actually needs to complete this journey and throws everything else away. Stuff that he put on the board that for backup, now is just weighing him down and holding him back. He throws it away. He threw away like 300 yards of rope. He threw away food. He threw away extra gear, things that he thought he could survive without. What he was doing was, sometimes in entrepreneurship, you have to strip away the fat, the extra stuff that's not really valuable, that isn't helping your business grow. That could be people, that could be a line of business.
Yeah.
But you got to optimize. And if you don't optimize, you hinder your own success. I think that's like a really interesting lesson. I don't know if you got that far. And I think you did. If you went a third, you got that far.
I did. I remember that specifically. And of course, the environmental impact of him pushing over however many gallons of kerosene or whatever. I'm like, oh man, you couldn't get away with that today. But no, it was interesting to hear his perspective on that, because like, well, why did you pack that stuff in the beginning? But I don't know, did that impact his ability to, he didn't complete the race. So did that impact his ability to complete? Because of his lack of, okay.
Not at all. So let me say the one other thing, and then I'll get to the other. That's the best part. And let me hold off for a second.
Okay.
The second thing that happened is when he was trying to shoot one of those slingshots onto another boat around Cape of Good Hope, the boat got too close to him.
Yes.
And almost tore off the front of his boat, the bowsprit, which is a little pole that sticks out of the front of the boat that the head sails, which are the sails in the front of the boat, attached to. And what did he do? He pushed it off. He didn't panic. He didn't stop going. He thought about it. He just figured out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Just figured it out. Mm-hmm. And like, this is something that kind of a lesser human would just be debilitated by. He was only less than a quarter way through this trip, and he just had his bowsprit almost ripped off his boat, bent in half. And instead of panicking, he hove to, which I'll explain what that means. I heard a term that was probably, what the hell are they doing here? And attached a chain and a winch to the mast of his boat, to the bowsprit, and bent it straight. And it worked for the rest of the book. But like, that's the kind of thing where, hey, sometimes you lose your biggest customer. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have some lawsuit that was unexpected for some stupid reason. Sometimes you have somebody dies a key man that you count on. Yeah. And if you're a business owner, you got to figure out how to fix it, how to make it right, how to move forward, or you can just let it stop you.
Yeah. And that, going through this book, it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, and I'm sure you'll remember who said it. I think it was one of the presidents, but I don't recall off the top of my mind who said it, but I want to say Roosevelt, but maybe not. Smooth seas never made a great sailor, right? Like you think about his ability to fix that bowsprit had nothing to do with that issue, that problem, but the fact that he had used all of those tools before to fix other things, right? Like he knew what the capabilities of the winch were. He knew how much the mast sail could hold. Like all of these things because of the problems that he's encountered in the past. Where had he been just, sailing around the harbor his whole life, screwed, right? He had to encounter these rough seas and rough conditions in order to make him a great sailor. Nobody would go off and venture beyond the harbor unless they've, had some difficult experiences.
What you just pointed out, though, is something else we've spoken about on this podcast, is the value in allowing your children to struggle a little bit.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
If you don't let your kids struggle, they don't learn how to fix their problems.
Yeah.
So
one other thing I picked up from him in this book, I took a bunch of really great notes on, takeaways that this is a great business book. If you can, especially if you enjoy the outdoors, adventure, and sailing. You know, he was constantly looking at the weather, right? Which, when you're out there, that's your number one friend and foe, I would presume, right? Like it could destroy you, but also you need wind to carry you through. And so he was constantly looking at the weather and attempting to set the boat up for what's coming. And he used all these tools, right? The barometer, the temperature. He was looking at the clouds. Like he had figured out the metrics, if you will, that he needed to look at in order to forecast the future of what his boat needed. And
he had to do it all himself.
I connected that, right? I connected that directly to, you know, when you're a business, you need those metrics in order to be able to forecast what's going to happen down the road. And frankly, he wasn't right every time. And so he always had a contingency plan, It's like, I set the boat up this way, but if I encountered this is what happened. He always had some backup plan.
Always. And it was really, I mean, it's really extraordinary. Like, he would judge weather based on wind, barometer, clouds. You know, he didn't have any forecast. He didn't have someone telling him what the weather was going to be. It was purely him. So the best part about this book is, so he goes around the 3 Capes. Huge, incredible race. Like, he's going to be one of the, when I said one person finished, it wasn't him. It was a guy named Robin Knox Johnson, whose book I also read, he wrote a book about this race too. It's really totally different. He's very English and it's very practical and whatever, but he's stoic. He doesn't have I don't know. I read this book and I kind of feel that Bernard almost feels like when he's writing, he's either drunk or high all the time.
Yeah, he's definitely spiritual. He's definitely spiritual. Yeah.
Very spiritual. Talking about the birds and the connection to the dolphin and all this other stuff.
I'm trying to look for this one page here. I had this highlighted and I just lost it. Where is it? Here we go.
Time to choose. I am thinking about my movie film. 9,200-foot reels have been shot. I hope they're still in good condition. But if I waited too long, maybe they would be lost forever. And he's talking about heading north towards Europe. And there are so many things in those images, so many true I would love to share with others. During the period after he went around Cape Horn, and he started heading north to the Falklands and was going to be working his way across. And he was at this moment for like a couple thousand miles, he was, should I turn north? Or should I keep going east? Should I turn north? And for the period between Horn and Hope, from South Africa to Africa, he couldn't make up his mind. He didn't know what to do. That all of a sudden, at the last moment, when he could still steer north into the Atlantic, he said, screw it, I'm going to Tahiti. So he went. He instead of going back to the beginning to win this race, which he would have actually won the race. Looking at the time, but when everything happened, he would have beat Robin Knox Johnson back. I mean, he would have made it because the Atlantic Sea is the easier part. He went to Tahiti. He went back, kept going past Good Hope again, all throughout the Indian Ocean, through half the Pacific and up to Tahiti. And so went 1.5 times around the world over, I think it was 9 months by himself. No additional food, drinking water off a sail, and then settled in Tahiti. The last quarter of the book is all in Tahiti, and like it doesn't even matter. It's like, and how did someone do that? Like, He said, I don't want to go back to society. I want to be within myself on this boat. It's where I'm happy. It's where I belong. It's where I can be the most productive self that I can be. And he just kept going. Like, that's insane. It's not like he didn't finish. He didn't finish on purpose.
Yeah. So I am.
Well, thanks for.
I am in awe of that.
You are welcome. It is.
Spoiler alert for everybody. No, that actually makes me want to continue reading it. I do.
If you get to basically 75%, you can skip if you were like 40%, you're like, oh, I got a long book to go. Yeah. You only have and you're in the hard copy, if you get basically 2/3 through the book, you will find that moment of, you see his indecision. And that indecision is really about, what are the key inflection points in life and business? And what is it that you want to do and what motivates you? And when are you going to make the decisions when there's no turning back? That sometimes you just got to go. And this is that fork in the road less traveled, all that stuff. Sometimes you can go the tried and true path, what people expect you to do, just going back to England and winning this race. Or you can continue on your own path, which is going to give you the satisfaction that you need. Now, that's not running away. Like, there's that option of running away. He's not running away. He actually took the harder road to go to Tahiti, because now he was in the Southern Ocean in winter, which is the most brutal thing you can ever imagine.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, there's a number of really great lessons here for me around that in this whole thing. I mean, one of the quotes that stuck out for me was, he says, calms and light airs are needed sometimes. We both need them. And the way I took that is, like, especially in business, it's go, 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 go. And sometimes when things calm down, we feel like there's something broken. When the reality is we need those times. We need the calms. We need the calms and the light airs. And ultimately, on his boat, when things are calm, he tidied up ship. And the same is true in business. You know, when things are calm, that's time to sharpen the sword, to use the blank space and the margins to do something different, or to really think about what you brought up, which is, what does the future look like? Now, when things are not calm, you do what's necessary to stay afloat, right? Like when you have the exact opposite situations, as you mentioned, the lawsuit or the death or whatever the case may be, you do what's necessary to float. And that's the entrepreneurial journey. It's up and down. It's never static.
Now, I have to say that's actually bringing up the point where I said I wanted to bring up heaving to, being hope to. What that means is, and this is 100% related to what I said, because it's the same point. What heaving to is, there's a way to trim your sails, getting your sails, your foresail and your back sail on your mainsail, different directions, with your tiller, which is, what your rudder basically, which steers you to one side. And you can stop in any wind and basically not move. It's pretty impressive. So anytime you saw him heaving to, he was stopping. He was calling break time. Taking a second, either doing he would do it for a couple different reasons. One is, I got to fix stuff, like the bowsprit. He had the heave to for that. Or a couple of times, he just needed to sleep and not worry about what was going to happen. So he needed to take a moment to himself, take that beat, and settle back down. That's actually that's a really important lesson. You can't solve everything by, as you said, by going forward. You need those pauses to allow yourself to succeed. And it's not being weak. It's not a weakness to do that.
No. Nope.
And I think a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, because there can be this addiction to the dopamine hit of activity, right? I mean, I know I've experienced it myself. I've slowed down more in the last year than ever, and yet business continues to flow freely and things continue to happen. It's possible, right? It's very possible to slow down and take breaks. In fact, I think it's absolutely necessary, especially when we recognize that the doing isn't always what moves the business forward.
Yep.
The illusion of control makes us believe that we have to continue push. But we actually control very little.
So, yes, exactly. Sometimes we can just handle things directionally, and that's about it. Essentially, that's sailing.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the other things that landed for me is always being prepared for the conditions to change. And that could be an overall anxiety about things changing. But in his case, it wasn't. He wasn't anxious about things changing because he was prepared, right? He knew conditions were going to change. He was constantly looking at the conditions. He was constantly looking at the weather. He was setting his boat up for what's coming. And I think that's the difference between having anxiety about change or simply surrendering to the fact that change will happen. And we just need to be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, I actually found one of the quotes that I wanted to share, and it's about heaving to. And this is that moment. He says, heaving to allows you to look over things while body, nerves, and brain relax and get back to the simple rhythm of the sea. After a peaceful quarter of the hour spent dreaming, everything was clear again. So clear that I slacked the sheets to leave Port Stanley in the wake and curled up in my berth. That's what sometimes the space in between the lines is sometimes where you can find success, meaning, and clarity. And interestingly, I'm going to bring up a different book right now, is Vital Crew's reading The Creative Act, Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Incredible book. The music producer. And he basically aspires to that. It's like, how do I allow my mind to live within the spaces that I can find my most creative self and achieve and create the greatest things I can? Because when you're doing that, doesn't.
Nope. Yeah. Yeah. There's the nervous system gets overrun when you're constantly doing, right? It's impossible for the nervous system to relax. It takes a lot of effort. I shouldn't say a lot of effort. It's very hard to surrender to when you have an overactive nervous system or a nervous system that is tuned to doing or achieving. It can be hard to surrender.
And sometimes thinking allows you to come up with interesting ideas. This is 1967 that this book happened, and he was very much an analog person. But I don't know if you got to this far. He made this comment during when he was making this shift, when he was deciding to go north or east. And he knew that if he went east, it'd be really hard for his family to know what's going on because they're not going to see him even longer and he's not communicating. And so in that moment, when he wishes he could tell his family, his child who he hadn't seen in 9 months, where he was going and why, he says, someday we will have tiny walkie-talkies no bigger than packs of cigarettes with range of thousands of miles. Then pals could communicate without going through the ears of others. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool. That is very cool.
So anyway, I think it's, I think this has been a really fun conversation. We go in for not too long yet, but one thing that I think this is important, and one of the reasons why I want to recommend this book, is recognizing that business lessons and indicators of success and how to operate is not solely within the realm of the traditional business book or business article. There's lessons to be had all over the place. And sometimes they're more powerful when they're not just, hey, dictated in a list of to-dos and how you should operate from a traditional type of book. Like, there's value in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think people get it as much.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a few other pieces that popped up for me. His level of intuition, right? I mean, I don't know what his background was in sailing prior to this.
After you say your comment.
Yeah. What landed for me is that intuition is powerful. There's almost no replacement for intuition. And his ability to read the tea leaves, if you will, because he had seen and felt so much. It's like the difference. I cook a lot of, I cook and bake and do a lot of things. It took me probably 12 times making sourdough bread before I finally got all of the feeling and the smell and everything figured out. Like the smell of the starter when it's ready, the feeling of the dough when it's overproofed, underproofed, has the right hydration, like all of that. So same thing with pizza. I screwed up so many pizzas before I finally got to the point where I could just nail a pizza, right? And it really is about
the reps.
It's all of the senses, right? Like it's a complete sensory experience. Intuition is a complete sensory experience, or at least for baking, and I'm sure for sailing, right? You're using all of the senses, and what landed for me around that is many people want to rush success, especially these days when we go online and we see, a company that's 18 months old selling for $5 billion or whatever. But what we don't see is the intuition from others that helped get them there, right? Like these unicorns don't happen on their own. They happen in a space where there are tons of people that have a lot of experience supporting them. So what I want to say is intuition is powerful and there's pretty much no replacement for it.
Totally agree. And you're right. It's all senses. But intuition isn't, I think also what you pointed out, intuition is not innate necessarily. You have to be open to be able to cultivate it, but it takes the experience of feeling, smelling, hearing what's going on around you to be able to have that intuition. Some people get it faster than others, but like in sailing, he grew up in Indonesia, on the water, on boats, was running around on a Chinese junk making deliveries when he was a teenager, basically never off the water, and had done other long distance sailing around the world, but never like this single-handed stuff, which was new to everybody. So that experience leads him to be one with his senses in a way that make the success possible. The people most of the people in this race did not have that depth of experience. They failed. Some of them did. Some of them just got unlucky. But like one guy, there's this race has so many stories of people. It's really wild. They have the Bernard Moitessier and Bernard Moitessier, very different. Then there's this other guy, and I cannot remember his name right now, but he got a ton of money backing from a bunch of people, and was like, I'm going to go do this, and rah, rah, rah. He gets down to the South Atlantic, and he becomes scared shitless and just starts going around in a circle for like a month or 2 months before his boat cracks.
Yeah.
He just hit a wall, mental, physical, emotional wall, because it's hard. So yeah, it's like he didn't have the intuition.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that connects me to another lesson from this book is he states one cape at a time, just like building the boat, right? He built the boat one piece at a time. And you think of that guy who essentially went crazy and gave up. I bet he wasn't thinking about one cape at a time, right? Yeah. He was thinking about the whole thing and just overwhelmed by the whole thing. And what a great way or a great lesson, a great way to communicate to the reader. It's like, look, if I would have tried to consider this thing as, this giant race, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm just taking one cape at a time. And I thought that was a really cool lesson.
And he broke it down, and he kept breaking it down, right? It's one tack at a time. He would do is one day at a time. Like the way a sailor works, and this is the way you take a sight every day at noon. And the reason you take a sight at noon, you use the sextant, which is this kind of like, you've all seen a sextant, even if you don't really know what it is. It looks like a little telescope with a compass thing on the bottom, and it has a measurement, and you take a sight at noon because you can see when the sun is the highest, and that tells, and you use as a clock to see how many hours did it take you to go from noon to noon. And it's never going to be 24 hours because you're moving via longitude. So, if they go from noon to noon took you 20 hours, you actually know your distance traveled in longitude. It's pretty wild.
Interesting.
That's how he's able to get these distances. He doesn't have GPS.
Right.
He's taking a measurement at a point in time and day at noon, typically, that allows him to know where his point on the globe is. And he measures from one point on the globe to the other point on the globe. And that's how he gets distance.
Wow.
So that's experience. But he takes that one day. This day I went 180 miles. This day I went 45, whatever it is. But just one other quote to your point about this experience and really taking it and understanding the granularity of what you're going after. He says, a sailor's geography is not always that of a cartographer, for whom a cape is a cape with latitude and longitude. Someone who's a cartographer, someone who draws maps, essentially. Mm-hmm. For the sailor, a great cape is both a very simple and extremely complicated whole of rocks, currents, breaking seas, and huge waves, fair winds and gales, joys and fears, fatigue, dreams, painful hands, empty stomach, wonderful moments, and suffering at times. A great cape for us can't be expressed in longitude and latitude alone. A great cape has a soul with very soft, very violent shadows and colors, a soul as smooth as a child, as hard as a criminal's, and that is why we go. Like, that's like the doer versus the person who's just recording the world. And it's when you're in it, you're going to have those highs and lows. And and for the entrepreneur, that's all they want, is they want it all.
Yeah.
They want it all.
Well, I feel like you can't have the highs without the lows, because when you think about honing your intuition, that is honed more effectively by failure, right? I mean, we know the human brain remembers things by emotion. That's why we can all remember exactly where we were when 9/11 happened. Like we can most of us can visually represent, probably draw even a picture of exactly where we were, exactly what we were doing when 9/11 happened. And so when you think about the lessons that stick with us, they're usually the lessons from pain more than pleasure. Yep. And so that's why it's important in business to take risks. This guy risked his life on a regular basis. And of course, in this case, pretty significantly with this one trip. But, I'm sure there were others where he had no idea what the outcome would be. And it's the last lesson for me that was really great is, and I think it's threaded throughout the book in a lot of ways, so I don't have one specific quote, but you really can't undo decisions. And even indecision is a decision, right? So when you think about sailing, unless you're, what did you call it? Where you stopped?
Heave to.
So unless you're stopped, you're moving forward. And so even if you don't make a decision as a sailor, you're making a decision because you're moving forward, right? And the same thing is true for business. Business really never stops in many cases. And if we don't make a decision, or if we wait too long to make a decision, that in and of itself is a decision. So you have to make new decisions with new information, because you can't undo old decisions. So the key there, or the lesson for me, and I remind myself this on a regular basis: make the best decision you can with the information you have today. You always can choose to make a new decision. You just can't undo prior decisions, right? You're just going to make a new one with new information.
Right. Yeah. And procrastination is its own decision, as your point. That's right. There's an activity to that indecision.
Yeah,
for sure. And I want to touch base on what you said. You can't have the highs without the lows. It's like, you got to, I was like, and I thought of this before too. Life is a wave function. And a wave function, when you look at it, whether it's a sound wave or wave, there's always a peak and a trough. And when they're close together, it's flat and it's calmer. But you lose those, you really can't have the peaks without occasional troughs. It's just it's an impossibility.
And you know why that is?
Why that is, as far as within a wave, or within it's a function of energy.
Yeah,
in life.
That's all we are, is energy.
Yep.
Right? Like you look at quantum physics, we are just energy, and energy is waves, right? So yeah, that's exactly why there is no constant. We do not exist as one plane. We exist as functions of energy.
It's like, I hope that we have some people out there that would choose to read a book like this. Maybe learn a new language, as you did, Matt. And I think you have, like, I'm going to bring that point up. I think that's so fun. I think it's so fun to dive into a new topic and really kind of understand the lingo, understand what matters to people, understand like whatever. It's like, it's really kind of cool. And all of a sudden you start picking up on it. I don't know if do you do that often, Matt?
When I create time and space, and it goes back to what you brought up earlier, creating time and space in the margins to do that stuff is really important. And same thing goes for creative activities. If we just don't do enough, if we don't carve out the time to do them, then we essentially lose that connection to our creative self. So what I found myself doing in this book was getting frustrated that I was moving so slow, and that's why I moved on to something else. And I was moving slow. I was moving slow because I had to learn the new language, and because because I truly wanted to understand it. If I would have given myself more time, or if I would have, maybe prioritized it better, I'm sure that I would have gotten to the point of excitement versus feeling like it was a task.
Now, Matt, you did have another option here that you chose not to take advantage of. You could have just written down the words, and then given me a call, and we could have spent 20 minutes talking about them.
That's true. That's true. Or I could have gone to ChatGPT and said, "Hey, I'm gonna have this podcast with Brent. What should I talk about?" And there was a part of me that thought about that. Like, you know what? Maybe I should just tell him I read this book. But I thought it'd be a lot more fun to just say, "Nope, I didn't read it," and here we are. But I'll tell you what. I mean, I feel like I got a lot out of it, even though I only made it a third of the way through.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Matt, you made it through half of the bit that matters. Yeah. Like the last, I'm going to say, like for anyone who reads this book, the last 30%, 25, 30%, just forget it. It's not where the lessons are. He's got this whole other thing that he goes into while he's in Tahiti. Like, forget it. But it's, this is the third time I've read this book, and I got a whole different, this again, like I'm rereading a book like we did with the Innovator's Dilemma, and you read it differently. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's really cool to go back. Yeah. So, hey, Matt, here, I'm throwing this out there. We didn't talk about this at all. Before we close up, do we want to do another book?
I think we should. I would like to maybe rethink how we do it, because I currently I feel like at any given time I have like 4 or 5 books going, and that's something I want to do differently this year. So what I'd like to do is maybe just choose a couple of books that we can do
like
this
one
year.
Each.
Yeah, or that maybe we could even, like, we're both reading The Creative Way, right? Or Creative Act.
Creative Way, yeah.
Maybe that's one. I mean, we're going to be done with that here in a month or two. Maybe we record that one.
I think that'd be really cool, because I think for a lot of our readers know who Rick Rubin is. Yeah. So let's get there. Let's do that. We're gonna do the next one. We're gonna do Rick Rubin. We're reading Rick. He's a trip. Beastie Boys, hate him, but doesn't matter. That's cool. Matt, anything else? Any last thoughts or comments on The Long Way?
No, this is great. I mean, even though this was technically nonfiction, it did read a little bit like fiction. And for those of you who haven't been following along, Brent cracked me open this last year and suggested that I read some fiction, because I'm constantly nonfiction. And it really opened me up quite a bit, and I appreciate that. And so for those of you who are listening who have never given fiction a try, I highly recommend it. You will have to go through a bunch of different books before you figure out what you like. And I recommend just do the first chapter, and you'll know pretty quickly whether it's for you or not. And if you have a great friend like I do and Brent that will send you a bunch of books, even better, because you can just get a sampling of, hey, I like this one or I don't like this one, and move on.
Yeah, I think I sent you 15 books and said, hey, give these a shot. Some of them are not going to be your cup of tea. That's okay.
Yeah. The Hobbit, I was done. I didn't even make it through the first chapter of The Hobbit. I was like, nope, no thanks. Way too fantasy for me.
And then I think that the other point with Matt, to add on to what Matt said about novels, is I think there's a tendency for people to think, and a lot of men actually, that novels are a waste of time because they're not somehow improving you. That's just a fallacy. If you get into a novel properly, you can learn about yourself. You can allow your mind to expand. You can find new ways of thinking, and it's totally additive. It's just not linear the way you get out of a self-help book.
Yep. It actually helps you to get out of your head, which is very useful, especially for entrepreneurs.
Incredibly. So cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This has been a fun episode, probably different than any other episode that you've read. If you're this thing novels applies to podcasts, kind of go something out of the ordinary is a good thing. So this is Brent Sonnek-Schmelz, along with my partner, Matt Bernath, and there's a Flywheel Effect. If you'd enjoyed this episode, please give us a like or a follow, 5-star review. And especially if you've enjoyed it, please share it with someone else who you think would get something out of it too. Until next time, it's a Flywheel Effect. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flywheel Effect. Our journey through the intricate world of luxury home services continues to be fueled by your passion for excellence and innovation. If you found value in our conversations today, don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. More insights and resources. Visit us online at growwithvital.com. Until next time.